Welcome to this podcast today. This is a collaborative podcast series brought to you by newclevelandradio.net and Cleve13News. Your purpose, your power, a journey to authenticity. I'm your host, Karen Hale, and I'm honored to share space with extraordinary individuals. Some are from Cleveland, but some are from beyond. Like today, our guest is from Austin, Texas. They've discovered their purpose, their power to live it out fully while lifting others along the way. This series is meant to be meaningful connections, mutual growth, and the beauty of learning from each other. I'm so glad to be here with all of you today. This podcast is sponsored by Cassandra Kubinski, songwriter, singer. She's a Leo, theater kid, a yogini, a chocoholic, a voiceover actress. And you can stream her music on the platforms that you prefer. Check out her newest release on YouTube, Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now. Go to the show notes, and there is the link. But let's talk about my guest today, Maureen Scanlon. I met Maureen through podmatch.com. So thank you, Podmatch, for finding wonderful people that I can connect with that I may not have found normally. And when I read your bio, my jaw sort of dropped, Maureen, because you're a master self-worth coach. You're a best-selling author. You're a relationship expert. I may need to come to you from expertise. You're a speaker and also a podcast host. You do all these things, and now you say how nifty it is to be 50 plus. Well, take us on your journey.
Oh, Karen, you're such a bright light. I'm so honored to be here and have your listeners here. Thank you just for having me and for allowing me to just share my story and my same thoughts as you, that maybe we can leave this world a better place after this conversation. And that's really the purpose. And I think if we narrow everything down, it comes down to purpose. So I always say the first half of my life was learning, and the second half of my life is teaching. So I have gratitude for the pain and the struggle and everything that I had gone through, because I live life by the starfish story, which is the little boy walking along the beach and there's starfish laying around and they're drying up, and old man comes up, the little boy's throwing them into the ocean, and the old man says, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm throwing them in the ocean so they don't die." And he said, "There's thousands of them. You're not going to make a difference." The little boy throws the starfish in the ocean, looks at the old man and says, "It made a difference to that one." And so that's what started me really on where I am and where my journey is and what my purpose is in the world going forward. Going back to my origin story of how I got to where I am today. I grew up, I had a great household upbringing. There was, of course, every family has dysfunction. I learned later, there was a lot of maybe codependence. I always felt I had to please people. I always had to earn love. That really was my idea, was by action you would get love. Not, you can't just be loved just because of who you are. And that was pretty damaging as I went into my adult life. I got married very young, too young. To our listeners that are younger, please, please, please find yourself before you join with another person to go on the journey with. So I was 19 when I got married, had my daughter very young at 19. And as the years went on, I realized, and I think I knew, but I had this soul that said, I have to help someone. I have to fix someone. I have to earn love. And so he was an alcoholic. He was abusive, physically, emotionally, psychologically, even sexually. And but I had to make it work. In my family, there was no divorce. And I always had this saying in my head, in the back of my head from my mother, you made your bed, now lie in it. So there was never this thought of I can get out of this thing. There was so much shame. No one really knew everything that was going on. He was in the military, in the army, and he had joined the military when I was pregnant. And so I went through the pregnancy by myself. His first station where he was stationed was in Germany. So here I am, 19 years old with a 3 month old, going over to Germany, a whole nother country, language, just no family, no friends. Um, that was definitely a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And I used to say, I don't have a choice. And that's really what I want to tell listeners is you always have a choice, no matter how dire it looks, you have a choice. They're not easy choices, but they're choices.
Right?
And that's really where it's a combination between what your belief system is, what you've been taught, what you've witnessed, and your strength in character of can I make these big leaps? Can I make a big jump? Can I do something different than my family did? And can I overcome the shame? So 11 years go by, I finally end up getting a divorce. He was unfaithful. I had gone through, the program AA and Al-Anon, trying to help him, and it's funny because I always say, the line I drew was him cheating on me. He could throw me around, he could, do whatever, but when you cheated on me, that was the line. And it seems so silly as I look back, like that girl, how silly you were. But we don't know what our limits are. Everybody has
Yeah.
a different threshold, right? Of where we're going to stop or where we're going to put that boundary down. And I didn't know what boundaries were. So I proceeded to make bad choices in other relationships because I didn't heal myself. I never learned my worth. I just knew this one wasn't good. So let me try this one. And I just kind of proceeded to do this thing over and over, still believing in chasing love. You know, those of you out there who are love addicts, which I believe I was, I didn't feel worth if I was singular. I only felt worth if I was part of a couple because that's in my family. Everyone had a couple. You were coupled up, and you go to Christmas and you're by yourself. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm
What's wrong with me? Yeah.
right? It's like there's nothing wrong with us because we are independent enough. And I always say those who get out of relationships that are unhealthy are stronger, much stronger, and more adjusted and healthy than those who stay in one and just take it. But it takes, like I said, you learning what your threshold and your boundary is. So finally, long story short, I get into this final last relationship and it doesn't work out. It's another narcissist. I tended to attract narcissistic people. Not surprising. I'm very empathetic and I just want to take care of you and I want to help you. And that's a very big magnet for narcissists. So be careful, my ladies, my empathetic ladies, be careful. They do know how to um, chameleon to you thinking they're like you, but they're really not. They're just trying to be what you want, so then you'll take care of them. So finally, I get out of this last relationship and I'm just sitting in my room one night and I'm just, sort of boohooing, feeling bad, feeling sorry for myself, thinking, what's wrong with me? The only common thing in all of these is me, and questioning just who I am and what am I going to do with my life, and am I ever going to meet someone who just loves me for me and I don't have to do anything for them to love me. And as I'm sitting there sort of boohooing, I look over and my dogs are just looking at me with the most amazing, unconditional love and look in their eyes. And at the time, I had an Australian Shepherd named Brody, and Jade is my Chihuahua, which I still have, but Brody passed in 2022. And it was this epiphany moment, Karen. It was like, oh, that's it. I don't love me like that. right? It seems so simple. Like, we all love ourselves, don't we? No, there's those words. There is those words we've heard our whole life. Don't be selfish. Don't be self-absorbed. Don't be self-centered. I disagree. Be all of those. Because if you're not self-centered, you're not centered in yourself. If you're not self-absorbed, you're not absorbed in your self-reflection, right? And be selfish, because if you're not well, you'll never attract somebody that is well. And that was my moment where I just went, okay, from here forward, I'm going to love me like you guys love me. It was so hard. I had never been to a restaurant by myself. I had never done anything by myself. I had three children and a husband all these years. I'd been in a relationship, no, all the time. I mean, I just never was comfortable not being in one. So getting uncomfortable was healing. I remember hiking by myself one time and meeting people on the trail and talking, and they would compliment me. And I remember walking after they left thinking, like, Elaine, when she the actress who accepted the award, when she said, they like me, they really like me. It was that moment where it's like, yeah, I'm not just a mother. I'm not just a wife. I'm not just a value with someone by my side. It was so empowering. And as you mentioned, being over 50, and then this was at that time I was 45 years old. And so that was sort of, if I live to be
Us.
90, it's the,
Yep.
it's the halfway point. And you're so right. I think you reach this point where your care factor lessens. Like, I don't care what people think. I don't care what my family thinks of me. I don't care what the optics are, what it looks like. At this point, all I can do is care and love me. Because in the end, at night, I'm the only one who's with me in
Right.
in this life, right? I support me emotionally, financially, physically. So I think that's the key, guys, is don't look for that validation outside of yourself. And my life coach journey began. Someone called and said, Maureen, there's this job that I think you'd be perfect for. And they mentioned life coach. And everybody's called me the counselor my whole life. My
Yep.
kids would bring their friends over. And I just looked at it and I thought, oh, that's me. That's me. I'm a life coach. So I did the schooling, I took psychology courses, I did the diploma in modern behavior, and just I was soaking it up like a sponge. And then getting my clients and seeing improvement from people who've been in therapy for 20 years, and all of a sudden I'm coaching them, and 3 months later they're different. They're in love with themselves. Like I had to become. I remember one client came, she was in getting out of a same thing, a sort of a marriage where he was very controlling, very suffocating. And as we worked together, by the time I think it was about 6 months, she did a world tour by herself. She had pictures taken in these long gowns, like on a wall in Egypt. And oh, Karen, it was the most beautiful thing to witness, to see someone change like that, the way that I was able to change, and realizing if I hadn't healed, then I would never, because you're going to attract at the same level of healing that you're at.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and like you said, I will work with you on that. And that's what I learned in working with couples too, is there's a long saying there was a book from an author, I can't remember the author's name, in the 80s. It said, don't sweat the small stuff,
Yep.
and it's all small stuff. That's pretty much the way life is. And the dogs are the one that taught me that. So I started observing them and going, why are we so complicated as humans? You know, I wrote two two books plus two children's books. I wrote four books, and my books for adults are just that. I give you examples of the dogs. Like my dog, I would wake up in the morning and there were stuffed animals all over the floor. And I'm like, well, what were you doing during the night?
Yeah.
Just enjoying yourself, spontaneously entertaining yourself, having fun. She didn't care who was watching or about bothering me. Going to the dog park and watching the socialization. My Chihuahua, for some reason, she has a type. And every time we went to the dog park, she went to the Huskies. We don't know what. Yeah, she would seek out the Huskies in the park. I got to know all the Husky owners because it's the only dogs that my Chihuahua would favor. The rest of them, she would kind of get away from me, snip at them. So you're so right when you talk about this kindness factor. And, I love what you say about if we're kinder to one another, that's where the change comes in. We don't have to make big changes. We don't have to go out there and get into politics and, you don't have to be mad at your neighbor because they support a certain candidate.
Right.
If you go out into the world, and I always do this is my best advice that I can give. I'm kind of a extroverted introvert. I love to be in my space and at home. It's why I podcast. And, I love that we get to do this with technology. But when I'm out in the world, I have a dog boutique that we do little pop-up shops all over Austin. I love talking to people. So I can't do a lot, I can't do that much energy. But when I am out there, what I do is I envision every person that comes up to me. I look at them with curiosity. I do not judge. I was kind of raised in sort of that mentality of judging people by what they do, what they look like. I changed that when I was judged. I decided I'm not going to do that. That was a choice that I let go of that old belief and that old programming that I had, as a child. So now, oh, it's so fun to meet people and go, tell me about you. What's your story? If someone has a differing opinion about something, this is my question. Tell me why you feel that way. Tell
Exactly.
me. Try to convince me what your opinion is. And then you can sort of always look at where people are coming from. So, for instance, if someone comes and they're really adamant about religion, or maybe they don't think women are, at the same level, then you go, oh wow, that's really interesting. Tell me about your childhood. You will find 99% of the time that's still an old belief.
Oh,
That was
absolutely. And we ca-
right.
and we carry that baggage on us. Okay.
Yes.
You know, I've heard some of my clients say to me, I'm not judgmental, but then I'll hear certain things that they're talking about, and I'll go, well, where does that belief come from? I never tell them that they're judging. Where does that belief come from? Well, my mother taught that to me. Okay. And your mother, is what is the age difference between you and your mother? And what is the educational difference between you and your mother? So that you can start to peel it away and start to understand that if I choose to be like my mother, I choose. That's my choice. But if I'm doing these things only because it's been, you know, thrown down to me and I caught it and said, okay, these are the things I have to do, then I'm not being authentic. And it took me the first 60 years of my life to realize I was not an authentic person.
Yeah.
Everything I did to please others. And so I remember my grandmother saying this to me when I got married the first time: never go to bed angry and be the loving wife. And so I made sure that anything that happened during the day, I apologized for at the end of the day so that neither one of us went to bed angry. My first husband loved it because I took all the blame. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I took all the blame. Be the loving person. Even when I felt that I wasn't loving him or falling out of love, I had to pretend that I was in love. And so when we split up, I didn't realize it back then how grateful I was because I wasn't in love. He wasn't in love. We got married for the wrong reasons, but the right reason turned out to be our son. And the even bigger right reason is after so many years of divorce, we can be friendly with each other because we're both living authentically now. And it's not always easy because depending who you have in your circle, and this is the one thing that many of us are seeing, is that we're drawn to a circle that judges us. I don't know why we're drawn because none of us want to be judged. We resent being judged, and we're being told not to judge others. So we sit there and we take it all on, and then we don't know how to release it until either you see those dogs looking at you with unconditional love, or my youngest son, when he went to move on for another job out of state, he looked at me and he said, "Mom, it's your turn." And I had no idea what it meant that day, but I slowly realized. And my husband wanted me to have my turn. He wanted me to stop being the wifey, the mother. He wanted me to be Karen. And if you don't have that in your circle, maybe you need to pull out of your circle.
Absolutely. I heard a YouTube, or not a YouTube, a TEDx talk from a philosopher. I think his name was Andrew Botten. And he said, "Why you'll marry the wrong person." That's what the TEDx talk is. And he said something that just has stuck with me through the years. He said, "We seek the suffering we know." And boy, if that isn't true, we would rather suffer through the thing that we're used to, like a family that's toxic, rather than do something different, opposing that and saying, "You're toxic. I don't want anything to do with you if you're going to talk to me that way," or going for a different type of man when you're in dating. I manifested my husband. We are one person split into two. I swear we share a brain. For instance, I was in bed the other day and I woke up and I thought, oh, you know what? It was Saturday. I said, I need to wash the sheets. I got up, I went into the restroom, I came back, and my husband was taking the sheets off the bed and putting them in the laundry. It's, we have such a connection, and I can be me. I can 100% be authentically me, but we don't know what that is until we finally sort of put our foot down and say, that doesn't work for me anymore. And I think that's the beauty of aging and the wisdom of life is saying, I've been through all these things. This didn't serve me. This did serve me. I'm going to try this new thing. If it doesn't work, I've tried a lot of things that didn't work, but that's okay. I'm going to just keep going and trying those new things. I think for me, that was the way I was able to sort of break out of the old patterns, the old belief systems, and just I started to see life differently. In the world now, I see souls, I don't see people, and that was the difference. I used to see people like, what's your job? What do you do? How many kids do you have? How long have you been married? How much money do you have? What kind of car? And now I'm like, who are you? And when I say to you, I see such a beautiful light in you. I literally see a soul with this bright shining light because you're trying to help people. There's all these beautiful light workers on the planet. Everyone should aspire every day to make a difference in one person's life. Be the little boy with the starfishes and just make that difference. I always, when I'm out in public, I make a comment to the person behind me in line, like a little joking light comment. I open a door for someone. I was going to, I love thrift stores. I like to save the planet and I have a resale business. And I was over at one of the thrift stores and I saw a lady bringing chairs out. I immediately went over there and I was like, here, let me help you with that. It's so easy to be kind. It's so easy to start a conversation. I have made lifetime friends just from a simple conversation in a store.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? You go out there and expect to have fun. That's one of the things in my book I wrote about was expectations. We go through life thinking what people expect of us when we should go out instead of expecting something bad to happen, because that's what I used to do. Oh, waiting for the shoe to drop. Oh, this bad stuff comes in threes. Oh, this is the hand I was dealt. Maybe next time I'll do better. Instead, flip that and go, what is good today? What good thing can I do? What good thing can happen? Wow, you draw that in. That's the law of attraction, that which is like itself attracts the same. And when you do that, watch your circle change. Like you said, get a new circle. Watch your circle come to you. You start attracting people like Karen and
Absolutely.
and out of nowhere, out of pod match from Cleveland to Austin, here we are. My sister from another mister. I just want to hug her because you draw in and attract that same vibration. It's like when you're kind, you draw kindness. When you're not kind, it's like a ball rolling uphill. It will come back to you with more force, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting. About 15 years ago, when I was pushed out of corporate America, I came home totally depressed. What am I going to do with myself? And it was a horrible winter, lots of snow here in Cleveland. And I remember looking out my bedroom window one morning. It was dreary and gray, and I wanted to cry. I just wanted to cry. But all of a sudden, something said to me, look beyond the cloud. The sun is on the other side of the clouds. Now, you can look at that gray sky, but if you look deep enough, the sun's going to shine through. You're going to see the rays. I don't know where this came from, but I chose, when I see a cloudy sky, that I know the sun is on the other side. Now, you live in Austin, Texas. You've lived in Arizona, so you see a lot of sun. When you live in the Northeast, wintertime, you don't see a lot of sun. And so I had to make my own sunshine. And I found as I was doing that, I was getting less and less depressed. And I went to see my doctor and I said, I need some help because I know I am depressed. And he said, well, what are you doing for yourself? And when I told him about my analogy about the sun, he said, you're on the right track. He said, now I'll help you along the way because you don't want to get stuck. And I said, no, I don't. And I said, and I want to really feel happiness. And then he asked me a very serious question, was, when did you last feel happiness? And I realized I always thought that when I worked, I had to work harder than everybody else, whether that was at my job, at home, cleaning the house, running an errand. I always had to do it faster, better. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know. He said, were you happy when you got married? I said, I think so. Were you happy when you had your sons? I think so, but I couldn't remember. And he said, that's because you're always doing. And so,
Yeah.
what is so important, it's not about retirement. It's about living the days the best that you can. And appreciating yourself. So
Yeah.
I don't have to be perfect today. I can, when this podcast is over, I can go downstairs and start an argument with my husband because either he didn't do the breakfast dishes or he's still sitting and watching TV. Or I can choose to know that he probably didn't do the breakfast dishes and he's probably sitting and watching TV. And how does that affect me? It doesn't. And I know if I ask him to go clean the breakfast dishes, he will. If I ask him to step away from the TV and do something else, he will. But he's in his pattern, I'm in
Yeah.
mine. And it's like you said with you and your husband, okay? We were thinking about the sheets needing to come off the bed. He picked up on that. My husband doesn't pick up on it unless I just very casually, in a nice way, make mention of it. And then it's like, okay, honey, I'll do it. That's about being kind.
It is. And it's also breaking a pattern too, where you're a people pleaser. I can see that your whole life you've been a people pleaser, and the doing part, like your physician said, is like me. Like I have to do something so I get something in return. Like there's always this transactional exchange,
Right.
you know. And the thing with getting older is I love to just now, if something's bothering me, I go, who cares? Does it matter? In the big scheme of things, does it matter if the dishes are in there right now and you'll get to them late? Like it's, I think when we're younger, everything is so urgent. Everything is so maniacal. I think it's just busy, busy, busy as a mother. We were talking before the podcast. You said something so amazing. You said, my siblings and I are very different, but we're very much alike. And then when you ask them about their childhood, how different they viewed it versus how different you did, I have something along the same lines. If I asked my three children what kind of a mom I was, I'm shocked. It's such a different perspective. Um, there was 9 years between my oldest and my youngest. My son
Right.
was, we were getting a divorce when he was 10 months old. So that's going to be a whole different outlook versus his older sister who, saw us together, saw us married. I mean, he never saw us married. And then my middle daughter, she'll tell me good things. She'll say, "Oh, Mom, I heard this song. Remember when you would play this in the car all the time with us?" Because sometimes we beat ourselves up. We go, "Ugh, I wasn't a good mom. I was always so busy and stressed out, and I think I took it out on them, but then I think I love them unconditionally, and they know that." There's a lot of beating up that I think we do to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we got to let that go. We've got to stop beating ourselves up. Someone in one of my podcasts, one of the guests said something so amazing. She said, when I mess up now, I go, oh, how human of me. And I'm all, oh,
Wow.
I was like, I love that so much. It releases that thought that we have to be so perfect. You can hear those patterns that you've done your whole life. I'm guessing before you were even married in your household, there was an expectation of you had to prove something to be,
Right.
you always were going to prove something, especially if you had two older brothers and you were the baby. I was the baby too. Like we always were fighting to prove that we were just as good as those older siblings and we
Absolutely.
we could do it too. And look at how we carry that. And that doesn't mean someone said something negative to us. It might just be our own internal viewfinder that we just felt that way. And then we took that and built on that throughout our lives. So there's not, I just want to make it clear, I'm not blaming anyone in my life anymore because these are the experiences that I came here to ask. I came here to learn these things and I chose all these people that are in my life. I can choose for them not to be in my life. So I don't blame anyone for what they did. If anything, I'm just grateful that I could step out of it and now have this bird's eye view of, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, okay. I know we've gone so much over time, but I
No,
just want to
you're
say,
fine.
as we get older, the health stuff starts coming in. I have recently, we're now in November, so that's 11 months. I have had the roughest year in my history of health issues. And boy, did that teach me something, Karen. I used to say, see, and we're always learning. So never think that you're going to stop learning, because until you stop breathing, you're still going to learn. I used to say in my coaching and on my podcast that your mental state is going to overspill into your physical state. Well, I love my life. I love my podcasting, my life coaching. I love all the things that I'm doing. I'm so happy where I live. I love my family. I've got the best marriage. And then I got sick. Huh. So, Maureen, is that really true? Did your mental health spill over? As I was going through this, so incidentally, I had neck pain, so I needed to have some surgery, but they found thyroid cancer on my thyroid when they did the MRI. So I had to have surgery for some nodules. I lost my voice for almost 3 months. That's who I am. My voice is me. That taught me, what am I without my voice? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to figure that one out. My voice came back. I went and had surgery for my neck. I was incapacitated. I was in terrible, terrible pain. I went back to my physician a week later and said, I'm in a lot of pain. And he said, we're going to do another MRI. They found that I had a hematoma. I had to go back in for another surgery. I went into a rehab because I had a stroke from having so much trauma and so much surgery. I left in a wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair. I was in a walker. I used a cane. And here I am. I'm much, much better. But boy, did that teach me some humbleness, that you can't mindset away pain. You
No,
can't mindset away health issues. And you're allowed to say when you're going through something, because Karen and I, we're not Pollyannas over here going,
no,
everything is perfect. The sunshine is always there. That's not what we're doing. What we're saying is, when you're going through something, ask yourself, why am I going through this? And how can I feel better about going through this? And you're allowed to say, this really sucks right now. I really don't like what I'm going through. I don't like this situation, but what can I take from this for later? And I said that as I was going through this whole thing. I said to my husband, there has to be a reason this is happening. My surgeon, who is a renowned national surgeon, spine surgeon in Austin and nationally, all these awards are on his wall, said to me at least 4 times, I've never seen this before, Maureen. We've never had this happen before. He came to the hospital and walked around with me. My surgery was July 3rd. He walked around July 4th around the hospital with me when I was in my walker. He was so worried. And I said, you didn't do anything. There's a reason why. And I just remember thinking, telling my husband, I don't know why this is happening, and this really sucks. This is really not something I want to be going through, and I want to get better. I want to podcast and coach again. I want to see my grandbaby. But now I get it. And you guys, listeners, it's so hard. This is how life is. We don't get to see the future. I didn't get to see, oh, by November, you'll be just fine, Maureen. You'll be having a podcast with Karen and having a good old time. I didn't get to see that. And that's the hard part, right? Of being human. I don't know what's on the other side of tomorrow. So every day, the work that we have to put in is what Karen says. The sun is behind the clouds. Just whatever you do, look for a ray. Just look for a little peak of ray. That's the good thing about that day,
you're
right?
so right. It's interesting how much we do have in common, because this past year has not been the greatest health year for me either. I broke my shoulder on Christmas Eve, had to wait a week for somebody to actually tell me I needed surgery. Went through the surgery, doing the physical therapy, doing everything, but realizing, I don't have the same range of motion. And some people saying to me, well, Karen, you're 75. It was like, no, 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 no. I had range of motion until I broke it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm working to get it back. But knowing in my mind, I'm going to be happy with every movement I have. And that's what I had to live with. And to appreciate, okay, I couldn't move my arm for weeks. Now I'm moving it. Now I'm raising it. Does it ache? Yeah, it aches, but it's not painful. And just as I was recovering from that, I'm walking through my garage and I tripped and I broke my wrist on the other arm. And so now I don't have this arm to use. I'm trying to use this arm that doesn't work as well, but I chose to laugh at it. And I don't think I could have done this 50 years ago. Believe me. If this would have happened to me when I was younger, I would have sat in my room crying. But you get to a point when you realize that you want to appreciate everything that you can do. And so yesterday, when I graduated out of physical therapy for my wrist, I was just like beaming. And I love my physical therapist. I wish I could go back every week to see her. But I had to say, I'm so glad to be leaving you because look I can move my arm, I can move my wrist, I can do these things. And she just looked at me and she said, I wish all my patients felt that way. And I said, it takes being beaten down just enough times and realize that, you know what, if I don't use my limbs, who's going to help me? You know, can my husband really help me? Is that really his job? Is that what I want him to do? I'm not in that position. I need that kind of help at this moment. And I'm sure that's how you felt. That I've got to find a
Absolutely.
way to get the voice to come out, to get me to be able to move around, you know, and you did it because of a will. Now, not everybody can heal that way, and we know that, but we can make
It
the
is.
most of everything.
It really is. It's that contrast of life where you can't know happiness unless you've had sadness. You can't know health unless you've had sickness, and that's where I think as you go through life, that gratitude comes in because when the other side of that is good, you're like, "Ooh, I overcame that. I'm so proud of myself. It's empowering that, oh, I've been through worse and I made it through that. I mean, I've had cancer, skin cancer 3 or 4 times. I had cervical cancer. So thyroid cancer was like, no big deal. I got this. So it's like the more experience you have, the more empowering it is to say, I can get through this. I'm in physical therapy right now too. And I actually followed up with my surgeon for a 3-month follow-up yesterday. And same with my shoulder. He's like, you need to go to an orthopedic surgeon. I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm like, it's fine. And I'm like you, I can only go this far and I can't do this. And I used to think it was connected to the neck thing. Now I know it's not. And they're like, we want you to go. I was like, I'm not doing that. I've gone through enough. I'm done with that. I've had enough for this year. Thank you very much. All my out of pocket for insurance and copays and deductibles is been paid for. But really in PT, I love the PT because they're so positive and they're so encouraging. And with the part that we believe I had a stroke on, I have balance issues, which is why I had the cane and all that. So I've been doing good, no cane, nothing. And he had me do an exercise the other day where I was walking sideways. I was pulling something that was, sort of
Yeah.
tension and going sideways. And my balance is completely off and I'm falling all over the place. And I said to him, oh my gosh, his name's Paul. And I said, oh my gosh, I thought I was so much better. And look, I'm still struggling. I can't walk backwards and I can't walk sideways, but I can walk forward. And I think that analogy for life is don't look at what you can't do, look at
Yeah.
what you can do. And
Absolutely.
that's where I think we are, right?
Absolutely. So, how can my listeners follow you, especially your podcast, read your books, and get to know more about you?
Oh, I thank you so much for that. So I'm at lifecoachmaureen.com and everything is on my website. It'll give you all the information for speaking podcast. My podcast is called I Never Knew But My Dog Did. Of course.
Well,
Could it be anything else? So short ink for short. So I never knew but my dog did podcast because our dogs have all the answers. They sleep when they're tired. They play when they want to have fun. They love unconditionally. They don't hold grudges. They have no regrets. So the dogs have it all. And in my books, my dog is more enlightened than I am. And my dog is my relationship coach, which talks about dating and marriages and long-term relationships and how to have those healthy relationships. And I say I'm an expert because I did everything wrong. And now I know just the opposite, that contrast. When you do everything wrong, now you know what to do right. And then my children's books, I'm really proud of. I just published my second children's books. And these are what we're talking about is teaching this mindfulness and this kindness and acceptance of one another. And so the first book is My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me. It's really about my grand dog and my granddaughter. And how we're the same and how we have things in common. Even though it's a dog and a toddler, we've got a lot of stuff in common, and we need to say it's okay. We can take care of ourselves, self-care. We're allowed to be scared. Emotions are okay. And so that's for our little readers. That's like from, my that's been her favorite book since she was literally like 9 or 10 months old. She'd go and grab it
I
and bring
love
it and flip it over and say Mimi on the back because my picture's there. And then the recent one is my cat Grayson is not like me.
it. Ooh,
And this one is going to embrace the differences that we have and that it's okay. Just like you said on election day today, it's fine that we can be different. We can have those differences, but let's always go out there with curiosity rather than judgment and criticism and defensiveness. Let's just say, that's very human of us to find something common, common ground, because that's in the end, all that matters is how much we love one another and how much we care for each other and take care of each other. No one's going to do that. No leader up in the White House is going to let us take care of each other. We got to come back together. We've been so separated. Let's come back together, right?
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to keep following you, and we're going to have you back. Okay? I love
I
it.
love it. I love
Oh,
it so much. Karen, you're amazing. Thank you for the light you
thank
bring
you.
to this world. This is our get to. And listeners, we thank you so much for being here. We really, really do. And I am open to any conversation or any comments. Just make a comment on my website. It goes straight to my email. And I love everyone. You're welcome to share any information or suggestions or guest appearances. I think I need to have you on my show too. We're gonna
Well,
do a
we're
little
going to
exchange.
bombard you with all those emails. So
I'm good. I love it. I love it. Thank you.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye bye.
Bye, honey.